All right, we're live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Future of Work Commission. We're here in the lovely Plymouth Town Hall. Glad to have you all here joining us. I'm Representative Josh Cutler. I'm the co-chair of the Future of Work Commission. To my left is my distinguished co-chair, Senator Eric Lesser. I'll give him a chance to say hello in a moment. We have an exciting group of presenters joining us today. I think this is really going to be helpful to our work as we review and chart a course for the future of work here in Massachusetts. And I have a number of housekeeping items that I need to just get to, but before we do that, I want to introduce a couple of special guests. One is I want to introduce one of our fellow commissioners whose district we are now in. I want to thank Representative Kathy Lenatra for all the hospitality. You may see, the commissioners may see the gift bags on their desks here, which Representative Lenatra was kind enough to collect to sort of welcome you to the Plymouth County and to Plymouth. We're proud of our heritage and cranberries and farming and all the history that we have here in Plymouth County. So Representative Lenatra, would you like to just say a quick hello?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome, everyone. We ordered this glorious day for all of you, so we hope that you'll stay in Plymouth after this and visit some of our restaurants in our downtown. But on behalf of myself and Representative Muratori, we both share Plymouth together, and Representative Exaros, we welcome you here to Plymouth.
Great. Thank you, Representative. And next, I would like to introduce, give our co-chair, Senator Eric Lesser, a chance to say hello, and he has a special guest with him as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chair Cutler. Thank you so much to Rep. Lenatra for hosting us. It's great to be here in Plymouth, just a few weeks ahead of Thanksgiving. Already putting me in the mood being here, but it's a great honor, of course, to be here. One of the oldest communities in the country, which is also paving the way for a future of work. That is our charge for our commission. So it's my honor to introduce a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, who's new to the Senate but has already made an incredible mark as chair of our Consumer Protection and Professional Licensure Committee. A little bit technical, but for those of you who follow the legislature or are learning about the legislature, the Consumer Protection Committee deals actually with a lot of tech issues and a lot of worker safety, and as the name indicates, consumer protection issues, which really are at the center of our commission's charge. And she is also hosting us as the state senator for Plymouth. So it's my honor to introduce one of our hosts, Senator Sue Moran.
Thank you, Senator Lesser. What an incredibly generous introduction, and thanks, Rep. Cutler, for getting us all together today. I want to use my intro time, in addition to thanking the town of Plymouth and everyone who's put this together, but just to really focus and emphasize on child care as core to employment and economic security in Massachusetts. There's a lot of work to be done. That's foundation for us getting forward out of COVID and really pivoting to the new ways that the economy is going to work bigger, brighter, and better for everyone. One of the things that I've recently done is filed an act to enhance child care relief, which will exempt recovery grants for child care providers from state taxes. So every dollar goes towards supporting greater capability, quality, and affordability. Additionally, I'm very glad to have sponsored Common Start Bill, which creates an outline for investing in and expanding the child care sector. So thank you all for being here and for all of your contributions to this very important committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. All right. Well, with those introductions, a few housekeeping items, as I mentioned, we need to go through, and then we'll dive into the substance of our meeting. First off, I think the most important, folks, information for our commissioners is the technical information about your microphones working. And so from PAC TV, I want to explain a couple things with your microphone. The session is being cablecast and streamed live, thanks to PAC TV. So it's important that everyone who is speaking has a microphone so viewers can hear your presentations and comments. If you are seated with the commission or standing at the podium, please turn on your microphone when presenting and make sure it is less than a foot away from your mouth in order to have the best sound quality. I was told by Donna to do this, about that distance. Is that correct? Okay. To view this session after today, please visit pactv.org for information and viewing options. And I did just want to thank PAC TV. I think, I'm sure Senator Lesser has local access in his district, and all of us do. What an integral service that they provide to the community. We wouldn't be able to stream and live stream this session without PAC TV and the community access services that they provide. So really grateful to PAC TV. Want to thank the sort of technical team that's producing this video today, Mark McKinley, Brooke Hoffman, Keith Hughes, and Donna Rodriguez. Thank you all very much for all of your assistance. While we're acknowledging our thanks, we want to thank, we have brought ALS sign language interpreters to the commission meeting this morning. I want to thank Anna Purcell and Sue Bruley, who are our two sign language interpreters. They come to us from the Massachusetts Commission on the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. So we're grateful to them for making sure that this is accessible to all. A few other announcements, and we have to take care of the minutes. This meeting is open to the public, and a video of the meeting will be posted to both PAC TV's website and the state legislature's website after our conclusion here. Thank you, PAC TV. We encourage members to ask questions and bring up comments during the meeting. We ask that members wait until the end of each speaker's presentation when we've allotted time for a question period with each of our presenters. I will do my best to call on everyone during the meeting and make sure that all members who want to have a chance to speak are able to do so. If members have remaining comments at the end of the meeting and there's no time to speak, we invite any member to submit written responses to my staff, Lila Adams, or Liz Storms from Senator Lesser's office for distribution. And I'd just like to, it's a good reminder to thank our staffs. I'm really indebted to Lila from my office, who has really spearheaded a lot of the work throughout the Future of Work Commission, but especially today. So Lila in the back, thank you very much. Also from my team, thank you very much, Cooper Leonard, who's done a lot of the legwork today, and Cole Angley, Chief of Staff, who's here as well. And I know Senator Lesser's staff is here, and I'm sure he will acknowledge them. They've been a great partner and a great help to all of us. All presentations and written materials will be distributed to members. They will also be kept by staff and made available via the Commission's page on the legislature's website. And I would just, to further comment on that, I would encourage everyone, if you are watching at home or listening here, or the Commission members, on the malegislature.gov website, there is a special page for the Future of Work Commission. All of the past presentations are now posted there, so it's a great resource, and it's an expanding resource as we continue to do our work. So I would encourage you to check that out. If a member would like to share any research, presentations, or other materials, please send it to my staff so that they may be able to distribute it to other members and keep it on file for any public requests. Water is available for folks at any point during this meeting. I think I'm going to need some after reading all these instructions. And restrooms are down the hall to your right. We did distribute minutes of the previous meeting, which was a fantastic meeting held at MIT in the Media Lab. And we're going to, in the interest of time, we have to do a roll call, and we have to do yeas and nays on the minutes. So we're going to have that double as our attendance vote as well. So without any further questions, we're going to do the roll call, and this is a yay or nay on the minutes. Okay? Everyone good? Senator Eric Lesser?
Present. Yes,
on
the minutes.
Senator Hines, I think, is running a little bit late. Representative Lenatra?
Yay.
Yay. Representative Lenny Mira?
Here.
Joseph? What's that?
Here and
yay. Yay. We're glad you're down. We're glad you could come from the North Shore down to the South Shore. Joseph Bevilacqua?
Yes,
yes. Secretary Costa?
Yes.
Miriam Ortiz?
Yes.
Good morning. Laura Stout?
Present and yes.
Good morning. Al Vega?
Present and yay.
Good morning. Lisa Burnt?
Yay.
Good morning. I know Rakeem Morris is on his way. Harry Dumay? Joanne Goldstein? All right. Steve Tolman is on his way. Lauren Jones, I saw Lauren.
Present and yes.
Good morning. And Tonya Metlack.
Present and yes.
All right. All right. I think, believe it or not, folks, I think I've gotten through all of my instructional materials. Staff, did I miss anything key that I'm supposed to do or say? All right. I'm not getting any frantic looks. Senator Lesser, did I miss anything from your point of view? No? Okay. All right, so we're going to dive into our first presentation. And as I said, we're going to have the presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A period at the end of that presentation. So please think of your good questions as we're hearing from our experts. Our first presenter this morning, I'm really pleased to have joining us. Fred Clark is the president of Bridgewater State University. Frederick Clark Jr. is the 12th president in the 180-year history of Bridgewater State University, which is also his alma mater, as you may know from being to see his mask. Under President Clark's leadership, BSU aspires to become a national leader in removing barriers to academic success, providing the necessary supports to help each and every student grow and succeed, and eliminating achievement gaps among all student groups. President Clark served BSU in many capacities prior to assuming the presidency in July of 2015, including as a member and chairman of the Board of Trustees, vice chairman of the BSU Foundation, and executive vice president and vice president for external affairs. President Clark also serves as a Massachusetts delegate on the New England Board of Higher Education. Like the majority of BSU students, President Clark represents the first generation in his family to attend college. He graduated from Bridgewater State in 1983 with a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and received his Juris Doctor degree from Suffolk University Law School in 1986. And somehow I ended up with much more gray hair, which doesn't seem quite fair. Welcome, President Clark. We're really honored to have you joining us, and I know you have a presentation to share with us, so please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the Commission, to the co-chairs. We consider it a great honor to present today at Bridgewater State University, and thank you for the good work that you're doing. We're at a watershed moment in our region, in our state, and in our nation. And I think that the work you're doing is going to be critical in helping us chart a path to the future. I also want to acknowledge my co-speakers here today, Senate President Therese Murray, Elisabeth Babcock, and our distinguished panel. I would let you know that Senate President Murray was the recipient of an honorary degree at Bridgewater State University this past spring after a 2-year wait, but it was worth the wait. And she had 30,000 people at Gillette Stadium cheering for her, and 3,000 of our graduates. It was well-deserved. And she's a fellow Bear, BSU Bear, so we're very proud of her as well. I wanted to give you a sense of Bridgewater State, just to give you context, tell you a little bit about our students, because I do think the student perspective forecasts the future. What we're hearing from employers, and then maybe a call to action for higher education and for Bridgewater State as well. So let me just start with Bridgewater State, and the co-chair just mentioned that we're 181 years old. We did have one president that served for 50 years. That's why I'm number 12, and I do not expect to serve for 50 years. I'm on year 7. We're just a teenager at Bridgewater compared to Plymouth, which is 400 years old, which we're very proud to have been a part of that celebration as well. We were founded by Horace Mann, the father of public education in the United States, Daniel Webster, and John Quincy Adams, as one of the first teacher prep institutions in the United States of America, if you didn't know that. We are number 10 in terms of size in Massachusetts, public or private. We're also the state's top producer of teachers and of social workers and of many other segments as well. We're very proud of our size, and we're the largest in southeastern Mass. But if you ask our students, they'll tell you that we're a small institution because our largest class at Bridgewater is 40. Our average class is 22. We have 10,651 students. They're all on campus right now. They're wearing masks indoors, and 94.2% of them are vaccinated. They're terrific. Bridgewater really has expanded quite a bit since I was a student. Paul Jean, who's helping me with advancing the slides, went to school with me as well. He's our vice president for marketing and communications. We had just become a comprehensive institution at that time. We are significantly comprehensive now. We've also grown. We're 43 buildings and 278 acres, and we've invested, thanks to you, $600 million in the physical plant of that institution in the past 20 years. But at its core, the reason I went to Bridgewater, the reason our students go to Bridgewater, is its accessibility. It's geographically accessible, but it's also financially accessible. If we're not accessible and we're not affordable, we will be the first to close our doors. We have to stay accessible. We are one of the most affordable four-year institutions in New England, and we plan to stay there. But like me, more than half of our students are first in their family, first generation to go to school. 27% of our students are students of color. And by the way, that's up from about 4% when Paul and I were students. and we expect that to continue to grow. 37% are low-income Pell eligible. But getting in the door, honestly, is not enough for any institution in higher education. We have to get our students through. So we measure our success by our students walking across that stage, earning a degree. And Bridgewater is very proudly ranked number 9 in the United States of America for closing achievement gaps for students while raising retention and graduation rates for all of our students and diversifying our student body at the same time. We have to get them across the stage. Otherwise, we're not doing our job. While they're at Bridgewater, we try to focus on high-impact practices. We think these are important. They're not just important for an institution, but they're important to our employers. It might be international engagement, but at Bridgewater, we're also focused on undergraduate research. No one does more undergraduate research in higher education except for Harvard University than Bridgewater State. We're number 2 in the country and number 1 in our mission class as singled out by the American Association of Colleges and Universities. We're also a leading producer of Fulbright and Goldwater scholars as well. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's all about how many students walk across that stage. We want as many to walk across that stage as come in as freshmen or as transfer students. By the way, half of our students transfer from somewhere else. So we graduate about 2,500 students every single year, and 80% of those students stay in Massachusetts. And I should have mentioned 95% of our students are from Massachusetts in the first place. We really do serve the state. That's a little bit about Bridgewater State. I want to talk to you about our students. Our students represent Generation Z. This is a very fascinating generation. I have a daughter who's Generation Z, but my other kids are millennials. And there is a difference between the two. What we've seen at Bridgewater and what's been studied nationally is Generation Z, which today are somewhere, if they're college age, 18 to 26 years old, but they're as young as 11 years old, so they'll be with us for a while. They have 3 very interesting characteristics. They want flexibility. They also are extremely pragmatic in their approach to school and to life, and they absolutely demand equity. Those are our students at our campus right now, and frankly, they're the students at all of higher ed campuses across the state and country. But when it comes to flexibility, this is the most technologically advanced and savvy generation in the history of the world. In the history of the world. But through the pandemic, surveys have shown that these students want to be together in person. They want to learn together in person. We've really heard that at Bridgewater State. 72% of these students expressed a demand for social interaction. They missed each other. They missed the interaction with teachers. They want to learn and live and lead together. We think that that could be replicated in the workplace. Maybe they do want to be physically at work. Maybe they don't. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But at least at a university today, they've chosen with their feet to show up in person, to live on campus, to go to class, to meet with each other, and to work with their faculty members. They're also focused on not just the degree, they're focused on the pieces of the degree along the way. We call them stackable credentials in higher education. It might be an associate's degree, bachelor's degree. It could be certificates along the way. They want these stackable credentials because they understand their practicality as well. And practicality also defines this generation. They're pragmatic. As I said, they're questioning. They question everything. They question the value of higher education. They don't want frills. They don't want to pay for, at least in my experience, they don't want climbing walls and nature trails. They want an affordable, excellent education that leads to a practical result. And that practical result for them is a career. They want to be sure that we're the gatekeepers and the architects of a pathway to career. And of course, this trend has been intensified by the pandemic, where we see that these students want to see the bridge to work. Most colleges, to be honest, don't do a great job of integrating career development into their curricular. And I think we have work to do at Bridgewater as well, but most of us in higher ed have work to do. We need to not focus on frills, we need to focus on pipelines and pathways. Millennials might have wanted those frills, but Generation Z don't. They want to be sure it's affordable, accessible, equitable, and leads to a practical result. And I mentioned equity. This generation is very focused on equity and diversity. They won't allow us to do just a report on, are we equitable? Are we for racial justice? Paul and I have a meeting with our student government tonight, and we already know one of the questions will be, what are you doing about it? We wrote a report last year, but what are you actually doing to implement it? And we are, and we will have a conversation with our students. They will hold us accountable, all of us accountable, and that's really wonderful. And of course, this is one of the most diverse populations that we've seen in our country. Just 52% are non-Hispanic white. And you already know this, but this generation is even more focused on these issues because they've been amplified by Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, racial justice writ large. And like I said, they expect us to act, and they expect us to close equity gaps as well. They don't want us to leave fellow students behind. They don't want the cream of the crop only to succeed. They want to make sure we're looking left and looking right and helping all students reach the high standards that we have, with a special focus on diverse first-generation and low-income populations as well. So I would only end with this student group is also focused on sustainability and climate. You've probably seen that in your interactions. They know that the world that we leave them has to be sustainable and safe for them as well. So that's our institution, that's our students, and I want to talk a little bit about the state from our perspective. And you already know this, but Massachusetts is the most highly educated state in the country, with more than half of our residents having a degree, and a bachelor's degree in particular. Employers need a highly educated workforce. And right now, we're not producing enough of them because baby boomers like myself are retiring, and there's not enough students in the pipeline to replace us. So you already see this. I'm sure you've heard from employers, but we have a talent shortage at this very moment of historic proportions in this state. And it isn't going to get any better. It's going to get more pronounced. But public higher ed, if you didn't know, plays a really unique role in producing that talent. Public higher education in Massachusetts educates a majority of Massachusetts residents. That wasn't true, by the way, 25, 30 years ago, but it is true today. And the public higher ed system educates 70% of high school graduates who remain in-state to attend college. And again, that's a very significant percentage from where it was a few decades ago. We have some challenges in educating the students who come to our institutions. They're geographic and they're demographic. The geographic challenge is that more and more students are coming from gateway cities. Gateway cities grew by 9% in the last census, and that's faster than the statewide population, which grew just a little more than 7% overall. And this segment of population, as I said, gateway cities in particular, is overwhelmingly served by public higher education. 73% of gateway city students go to public higher education. But the demographic challenge is that this population is becoming more diverse. As you already know, the white population declined in the last census from 76 to 68%, while Latinx, Black, or two or more races increased from 17.5% to almost 24%. And addressing the educational needs of that segment, that diverse segment of our population, is critical. And if there's one thing that you might underscore from my presentation today, it's that we cannot leave that population behind. And if we do, our state will be in decline. So it's really public higher education that educates that population. 72% of African American students in higher education go to public institutions, and 79% of Latina go to public higher education institutions in Massachusetts. We are the gateway for opportunity for the workforce of the future in this state. And what is the workforce asking for? What do employers want? So here's a question we get a lot from parents. What is the value of what you're producing for our sons and daughters? What actually will they gain in addition to a degree, maybe a degree that's in a particular field? What else are employers looking for? We think that a liberal arts education, you could call it a Common Core, you can call it a general education, is critical. It's the same language of what we're hearing from employers, but we might use different terminology. So what are they looking for? This is actually very hard to see, I think, right here. So let me just pull up my screen, and I will let you know, because we do agree with employers in terms of what they're looking for. First and foremost, employers want to make sure that our graduates can work in teams. They want to be sure that they can have critical thinking skills, that they can interpret data in a real-world setting, that they're digitally literate, and that they can solve complex problems from different perspectives, that they're ethical, that they can write, that they're creative, that they have an ability to be culturally competent and work with people from different backgrounds and perspectives. They want to be sure that they can present through speaking. Oral presentation is a very important communication as well. And also civic engagement, civic skills are important to employers. We agree. And that is the core, that is the essence of our liberal arts education, all of those items, which is why all of our students at Bridgewater, no matter their major, are required to take general education courses that touch on each of those skills. Employers also want to be sure that learning can be applied. We call it experiential education in higher education, but you know, it's internships or apprenticeships or professional apprenticeships, work study, or service learning or research projects. That's what employers are looking for as well, and we absolutely agree. I'll give you one example of that. I happened to be with a vice president of General Electric a couple of years ago, and I said, are you looking for engineers? It must be very hard to find engineers in this environment. He said, yes, but we're looking for more than just engineers. We want engineers that have a background in music or have a background in art or a background in philosophy. I thought that was intriguing. So why is that the case? We want people that can solve problems from different perspectives. If everyone comes out of a narrow chute of training and doesn't have all those other perspectives, you're not going to solve the most difficult issues that are in front of them. And by the way, I would also, this is not necessarily an employer issue, but I did mention that civics education is important. Well, we're also producing citizens at places like Bridgewater State. Let's be sure that they know how to function as good citizens in this society, in this great democracy. If we don't have full functioning citizens, our democracy will teeter as well. So let's not forget the fact that we need to produce good citizens and civic leaders. But I'll let you know that while we're paying attention to workforce needs and trends, and we do invite employer opinions and advice at places like Bridgewater and other institutions as well, universities can better align with changing technology and workforce needs. There's no question that we could do a better job of it. I'll give you a couple of examples at Bridgewater how we've listened to the employer community, work with our state partners, and hopefully we'll make a difference. The first is in photonics engineering. Now, photonics engineering, this is the limit of my expertise is going to be, really it's the movement of data through light. That's really what it is. And when you move data through light, it's 1,000 times faster than using traditional electrons in electronics. It will revolutionize your cell phones, computing, autonomous vehicles, biological or chemical sensors, even in your skin, and medical devices writ large. We heard the state of Massachusetts, we heard the United States, and we're aware that there is a very, very large gap in the number of people that are being produced from higher education. So we've invested in it with our state partners. I think that's our photonics lab, which is brand new. I will let you, I think at MIT there was a conversation that the MIT folks mentioned about our partnership. We are in partnership right now with MIT, WPI, Stonehill College, and a few other institutions in producing a certificate in Bachelor of Science in Photonics and Optical Engineering. And we are partnering with the state and with other higher education institutions and employers as well. I will let you know that this program would not have been possible without state investment. That catalytic investment is really what made it happen. And the state also asked for collaboration amongst higher ed institutions. And I will tell you, no one in this current environment, no higher ed institution can succeed on its own, not even MIT. They needed Bridgewater, we needed MIT. Higher education islands will fail in this environment. We have to collaborate with each other. There's another example outside of photonics, and that's cybersecurity that we're in the middle of right now. Again, a huge need in Massachusetts, the United States, really worldwide. We have 13,000 cybersecurity jobs posted right now, 500,000 in the United States that are going unfilled because we're not producing enough graduates with those critical skills. So once again, with a small state investment and with partnership with other institutions, collaboration, we intend to address, at least in southeastern Mass, with the employer community, talent shortages in cybersecurity. That, by the way, is an image of a cyber range. It's not functional yet at Bridgewater. That's actually from New York and Rochester Institute of Technology, but that's pretty much what it'll look like. It's actually a place for our students to go with employers to practice cyber challenges. It might be a ransomware, and then all of a sudden, all of those students are going to have to solve the problem in real time with lights flashing. And that particular version has like an earthquake, so everything moves. Now, we won't do that because that only happens in the president's office where we have red lights. But we're very proud of that, and we will be in collaboration with other institutions across Massachusetts, and again, be a lead participant in helping to drive a statewide cybersecurity consortium. By the way, former state senator Vinnie DiMacedo is playing a lead role in helping us to think that through and helping us to make connections. We don't want to forget our existing programs that have high demand as well. Again, paying attention to the needs of employers, paying attention to data. Health science, public health is another area with high rates of growth statewide over the next decade, and we need to step up and provide training. You got about an 18 to 22% increased need in occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language pathology, and athletic training. We also have an aviation program at Bridgewater. Down in New Bedford, we have 12 airplanes, and we have about 400 students that are in that program. We do invade Rhode Island every other week, but nobody seems to care. But there's a worldwide shortage of pilots, and that's another area that Bridgewater hopes to step in and lead for. But even with teachers and social workers, I mentioned we're the state's largest producer, single producer of teachers and social workers. There is a growth expected for those as well. For teachers, growth rate of 11%, and about 11% in Massachusetts from 2016 to 2026. And for social workers and other mental health professionals, it's even more intense. As a matter of fact, just last week, we concluded a partnership with Mass General Brigham that is so desperate for behavioral health graduates that they wanted to create a pipeline, a direct pipeline with us and other institutions to meet their need. We'll see more of that as we go along. So what have we learned throughout the pandemic and from employers and in this talent shortage? Universities need to build better bridges to work, integrate career development into our curriculum. But to do this well, we have to forge better and deeper partnerships with businesses. We have to invite them in. We have to listen to them. We have to allow for them to comment on and influence our curriculum. And at Bridgewater, we operationalize this through increased internships and something new that we're calling professional apprenticeships as well. We have over 1,400 internships at Bridgewater, and about 800 of those are paid internships as well. Again, there's some state money in the mix on the paid internship piece. Employers can't get enough of our students, particularly paid internships, but they're clamoring for our students as well. Professional apprenticeships, is a new concept for us. It goes a little deeper than a shorter-term internship, and it might build a more direct linkage to work. And it could actually influence student employment as well. So think about our computer science students working in our IT department for a year. That isn't really that's not a work-study job. That's a professional apprenticeship. They're learning a trade and a skill, and they'll apply that in a real-world setting as soon as they graduate. We're big fans of that. So we do anticipate integrating career preparation into the student experience much more so than we have in the past. This is a concept we're calling BSU Works. We're going to provide more planning and a deliberate career pathway for every single student will have to complete. Right now, they don't have to have career counseling mandated for all of our majors, but we're moving in that direction. And of course, along the way, we want to be sure they take advantage of everything we have to offer prior to leaving us. But I'll let you know. So I'm in my 7th year as president. I've been connected to Bridgewater State one way or another for 42 years, and all that time, I have never once met a student that wasn't at our institution for any other reason than to get an excellent education that leads to meaningful work. I haven't met one. They're there for an education that leads to meaningful work. We have to embrace that and not be shy to embrace that as well, because we have a moral obligation as educators to make sure that we deliver on that expectation. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President Clark. That was an excellent presentation. I have some really detailed questions on photonics now to ask you.
I'll be right back.
No, seriously, thank you very much. That gave us a lot to think about, I think. And happy to open the floor to members who would like to ask some questions. First, Secretary Costa, and then Mr. Bevilacqua and Lauren Jones. So, Secretary Costa?
Actually, I was pointing to Joe. So
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I will say, President Clark, that was incredible. That was, first of all, you continue to affirm my liberal arts education, which I really believe in very, very strongly. But one of the things that was missing, when I graduated 100 years ago, was that connection to the businesses and that connection to real employment. So I really commend you for doing that. From the workforce perspective, this is what I do all day. Yep. Try to bridge people, and I think that our public universities are key to getting us out of where we are right now. But that connection to the employer, the professional apprenticeships in particular, and those paid internships are giving people access and opportunity that otherwise they would not have. So kudos to you. I just had a comment, no question.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you.
Thank you. So Joe Bevilacqua and then Lauren Jones.
Yes, thank you, President. I had the opportunity to meet you several years ago in one of our state university, and I'm continuing impressed with the growth and the achievements, and I want to say congratulations. One question that I have is there's a growing need in our region and our state and our country for vocational education programs and for vocation-minded students. Is there a link or is there a relationship with American University and vocations so that kids that may not are fully destined for college, full academic, but, I'm sorry, but also have the education background they need as they learn the trades and so on? And I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, first of all, we have very good partnerships with the Voc Tech schools. And many graduates from Voc Techs do go on to a 4-year degree. So whether it's Southeastern Regional Voc Tech or if it's New Bedford as well, we do have a partnership, and we have people that physically on those schools at different points of the year to be sure that students understand that there are pathways. There's more defined pathways. For example, at New Bedford Voc Tech, students can take aviation mechanic courses, go on to Cape Cod Community College for a certificate in aircraft maintenance, and then if they want, they can continue to go on to a place like Bridgewater State to get a business degree or something else, or aviation science degree as well. So there are pathways. If you're in If you want to be an electrician, but you have an aptitude for engineering, clearly our photonics program is a perfect transition for that. But we have to be connected, I think, to the voc techs where students might need, and the employer community might need, something more than just a high school diploma or even a certificate in a particular voc tech field. And they might need something broader than that, whether it's an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. The other thing I'd mention is that, I think I said this earlier, half of our students come from some other place, 1 and 2 at Bridgewater, but most of them come from community colleges. So our other connections to the community colleges, which do have quite a few voc tech-oriented programs, like Massasoit and HVAC or mechanical engineering or in the health science trades, we have to be sure that there are clear and easy pathways for those students with transportable credits and easily transportable credits as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Lauren?
Thank you for your presentation, President Clark. Just curious, when you speak about the employer engagement piece, do you find that traditionally for internships or apprenticeships that students are connected to local employers in the Southeast, South Coast region? And then kind of a two-part question, do you anticipate that in the future, as we're now in these hybrid and remote times, that there's opportunities, or you're seeing opportunities for your students to get connected to employers across the Commonwealth or even beyond Massachusetts?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You know, local employers have more awareness of the institution and maybe our capabilities, so they do knock on our door first. I'll give you an example. Meditech, for example, which is a very large medical records provider in southeastern Massachusetts. They have a workforce of 4,000. They're on our campus probably on a weekly basis talking to our students. 400 people at Meditech are Bridgewater graduates, including the president of Meditech. So it does pay, I think, to be proximate to create those pipelines to physically get in front of our students. But there was one data point during the pandemic that surprised me, and that was that our internship numbers, that 1,300 number we showed on the screen, didn't decline during the pandemic. It actually held steady. Our students found internships in a virtual situation with employers, and they weren't all just local. They were across the state, across New England, and across this country as well. So I agree. I think that our students, this Generation Z, they're not afraid, you know, to reach out and do something that might be more uncomfortable to millennials or baby boomers as well. I do think, you know, making those connections beyond the borders of southeastern Mass or Massachusetts is important for our students. But we do want to also keep them in the state, I think.
Right. Thank you.
Any follow-up? Okay, great. Laura Stout, and then Secretary Goldstein.
Good morning, President Clark. Thank you so much for that great presentation, and congratulations to your student body. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about your students with disabilities. I think you probably are familiar with the statistic that 1 in 3 people have a disability, whether it's visible or invisible. Can you tell me about how you're attracting, training, and retaining and preparing these students for employment?
Thank you for the question. I do think that students with various challenges are coming to our campuses in increasing numbers. I think that probably is a compliment to K-12 doing a better job of maybe helping students to succeed at that level. We do have to find ways to prepare ourselves to meet their needs. We have a Student Accessibility Services Department that is really designed to help students that need that extra attention. And they're a part of our Academic Achievement Center, again, tutoring, support. They may need someone to transcribe notes or to take notes or help them with test taking and that type of thing. But I will let you know, we also have a program called the Inclusive Concurrent Enrollment Program. That's something that's a state priority. It's also state funded. We're very proud of the Inclusive Concurrent Enrollment Program at Bridgewater. And what that is it's really more designed for high school students that are a little bit older, generally age 18 to 22. They come to Bridgewater and they audit classes. They're a part of our campus community. We're the only institution in the United States of America as of today that actually has those students in residence on our campus. We hire our own students to take care of them, to be mentors and shepherds, and to help them through. And, you know, according to parents and according to the students themselves, you know, they love the experience. And many of those students have gone on to matriculate at places like Bridgewater State, and we love to have them. But I do think it's a challenge going forward because I do see the numbers increasing. Can we keep up in terms of the support services we provide? That's a question.
Good. Secretary Goldstein?
Thank you also for your presentation, and I actually do have a question on the photonics, is that how you say it?
Uh-oh.
But it's a question you can answer.
Okay.
You mentioned that in that department, you do certificates and Bachelor of Science degrees. Can you give us an understanding of the demographics of students who go for the certificate versus the four-year degree and what their employment prospects are based on one or the other? And my last question related to that is, if you get a certificate, can you use those credits eventually towards a bachelor in the same field?
Yep. You most definitely can use the credits you earn for a certificate towards the bachelor's as well. Both of those programs are brand new at Bridgewater, so you know, we have some data points probably still to provide. But generally, the students that are in our photonics program right now are the same demographics of students we have at Bridgewater State in terms of male, female, and in terms of race as well. So, you know, we make sure that we're as diverse in our programs as we can be. You know, and I'll let you know that the certificate, you know, when you're trying to build a program in higher education, I see some friends here from higher education as well, you usually will start with a certificate program to generate faculty interest, to generate employer connections. You move on to a minor, and then you eventually move on to a major. Our major was just approved by the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education just a couple of months ago. So I think the degree is really what employers are looking for. We expect every single one of those students to be gainfully employed because the demand is so pronounced. I think just locally, Plymouth Grading. Plymouth Grading is an optical engineering company here in this region. They hire pretty much every student we produce. So there's many more, I think many more employers that are interested.
So if I get a certificate versus the degree, is my salary when I start lower than if I have the degree, and the functions I would do lower as well?
I would assume that that's the case, but I'm not 100% sure because that certificate program is less than a year old. But I'll do some research, Secretary, and have it sent up to you. I would imagine that that would be the case.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Dumais.
Sure. Well, first, a wonderful presentation, President Clark, and really commend you for your institutions and the number of first-generation students and students of color that Bridgewater State serves, and making a small campus feel to a large population. And also, this is more of a comment on really underscoring the key aspects of the education, the broad education that you provide to students. And you've highlighted some of the key elements. There was a McKinsey study about what the students of the future, the workers of the future, preparing students for the jobs that don't exist yet. Yeah. And thinking about those communications, critical thinking skills, those skills of digital literacy and working together. And you touched on all of these in the general education presentation that you provided. If I have a question, and it's something that I think is all of us in higher education are struggling with now, that the importance of having that broad-based education, liberal arts-based education, core education for all students, and the increased demand for stackable certificates, short-term certificates that we're seeing in general, and ensuring that we're providing students what they need, but that the broad-based education is what's going to allow them to adapt to the jobs that don't exist yet. So that tension, if you don't mind speaking a little bit.
I completely agree. I mean, when my father was a young man and was thinking about careers, he could probably expect to have one career in his entire life, in his entire career. The average number of employers that our students will work for in their lifetime is closer to 14. So how do you narrowly train someone with just-in-time training for one job when you know that this is just the first of many? Adaptability is the most important quality we can provide for our students. How do you make students adaptable? You have to give them a broader base of training than just that narrow field. And if you want to solve complex problems, very complex problems, you have to be able to see those problems from different perspectives, like my GE story I mentioned earlier. Because if you can't see a problem from different perspectives, you'll never solve it. You have to bring that diversity of perspective, diversity of people too, which helps with diversity of perspective to solve complex problems. I honestly believe that that adaptability that we provide through a liberal arts education is the most important takeaway that our students will have as they leave Bridgewater. And I can assure you it was the most important takeaway for me.
Great. I think Senator Lesser has a question, then we're going to move on to our next
Sure.
presenter. Thank you.
No, we're
Hi, Senator.
we're already just slightly over time, but just fantastic presentation, so provocative, so many elements of this to dive into. Just first want to thank you for the cybersecurity leadership, and I do just want to publicly acknowledge Vinny DiMacedo, who was a key part of getting that through the economic development bill in January, and excited to see that come to fruition. Kind of a comment building off President Dumais and a question, but it's become very clear that iterative skills training, stackable credentials are essential for where the economy is moving, where the workforce is heading. But I really appreciated that your slides emphasize the importance of a general education and citizenship and civics training for students as well. And I wanted to just kind of ask that. I mean, how do we recreate a liberal arts degree to make it more economical, to make it more accessible, but not lose the good parts of a liberal arts education, which at its best teach people to look at the world critically, teach people how to be active citizens, teach people, as you said, how to jump from situation to situation and be adaptable. Like your example of the art student who goes into engineering, just to develop that a little bit more. Doesn't have a concrete answer per se, but I appreciated you including that.
Well, Senator, thank you so much for the question. I would just simply say we don't talk about it enough. I haven't actually read an op-ed piece for my entire time at Bridgewater where someone wrote about the importance of the liberal arts. And you know which voice is most important of all? The employer voice. We already know what they want. They've been surveyed and resurveyed, but they're not always as quick. I don't know why. Maybe we just need to ask them to articulate the importance of that broad base of skills. Let's start talking about it. It's not either or. It's not liberal arts or kind of stackable credentials in a more narrow defined path. It's both. And it should be both. Let's talk about it equally and not just one or the other. And it's really the employer voice. I've met with many employers, including at the statewide level, and I always challenge them to speak up about the importance of the liberal arts before they're gone. Because without really articulating their importance, they get withered away very, very easily. It's very, very easy to invest in cybersecurity, photonics. It's harder to invest in philosophy or English or the foreign languages. Thank you so much.
Great job. Thank you. That's a great point to end on. Thank you, President Clark. We really appreciate your presentation. Obviously, you've sparked some good discussion here, so job well done. Thank you. Next, we're going to jump to our next presenter. Just wanted to briefly, I neglected earlier, to thank some of our hosts, Melissa Arrighi, the Plymouth Town Manager, and Chris Bedeau from the Town Manager's Office, who's been integral in helping us to get set up and situated here in Plymouth, in lovely Plymouth Town Hall. So I want to thank both of them. Next up, really pleased to have a former colleague of mine, Therese Murray, the former president of the Massachusetts Senate, who needs no introduction to anyone here in Plymouth. But I will read her bio for those joining us from further afield. Former Massachusetts Senate President Therese Murray served for over 20 years in the Massachusetts Senate. She was the first woman in Massachusetts history to lead a legislative body. During her tenure, Senator Murray was a leading force in healthcare reform and cost containment, marriage equality, transportation reform, welfare reform, and economic development. In her capacity as Senate President, she led several international economic development trade missions to promote the Commonwealth's healthcare and innovation industries. Knowing Massachusetts' leadership in healthcare and seeing the importance of international economic development to the economy, Senator Murray founded the nonprofit Mass Ignite following her departure from the Massachusetts Senate. In addition to Mass Ignite, Senator Murray currently serves on the Board of Advisors and as a senior advisor at Rasky Partners. We're very pleased to introduce and welcome back Senator Therese Murray. Senator Murray?
Thank you. And before I begin, Mr. Chairman, I just want to say that was an amazing presentation, President Clark. I always like to learn new things, and I learned an awful lot. I'm in analog, stuck in analog, so you're in photo, whatever that is. I'm just, I'm in awe at the constant changing of the technology. But thank you for inviting me to speak with you today, Chairman Cutler, Chairman Lesser, and members of the Commission. In behalf of America's hometown, welcome to Plymouth. 400 years ago, a ship with 102 souls and 30 staffers departed from Plymouth, England. The people aboard the ship left all they knew and braved the dangerous North Atlantic on the hope that they would live in a land where they could live and thrive and where they could fulfill their dreams, not unlike all of our immigrant ancestors. And while we know there are many different aspects to this story, which includes the perspective of the Wampanoag Nation, I begin with the Pilgrims because their quest for fundamental freedoms and to find a place where they could make a better life for themselves are the basic principles of our Commonwealth and the founding of our country. And they are the basis of the American dream. However, with every passing generation, and we just heard a little bit about that, and in fact, every passing year, that American dream is slipping away because of astronomical increases in the cost of living that includes health care, child care, housing costs, insufficient incomes, and lack of education and training available for the jobs of today and tomorrow. And these aren't new problems, but the gap that the pandemic showed us here has exacerbated, and it continues to get greater. In order to make ends meet, it's getting more difficult for so many more people. After World War II, the American dream was attainable. Public housing complexes went up in cities. Neighborhoods of tract housing were built for returning troops and their families in the suburbs. Those returning to the workforce found jobs that they remained in, as President Clark mentioned, not just 3 or 4 years, but 30 or 40 years. That included benefits like health care and pensions. And they weren't just white-collar jobs, but included trades and manufacturing. As their children, the baby boomer generation, came of age, they too went into careers and that they expected to stay in their entire working lives. They worked for big corporations or government. They became teachers, firefighters, police, journalists, or continued in traditional industries like fishing, knowing, or at least assuming, that they'd have the safety net of a pension or Social Security, that they'd be able to afford health care and buy a home, that they could care for their families and afford to enjoy their retirement. And while that may have been possible for some, many others had that net swept out from under them. And with the mass exodus of manufacturing jobs to first Japan, then China, then Vietnam, then Bangladesh, and outsourcing to India, and so on, because companies knew that they could increase their profit with labor that costs less and labor laws that are non-existent. People who had been working in one place their entire careers all of a sudden had no job. Particularly in this area, the loss of garment and the shoe manufacturing and the fishing industry put people permanently out of work. This fundamental shift in our economy exacerbated the schism between the haves and the have-nots, puts us on the trajectory we are grappling with today, and has fundamentally changed the way our workforce looks at where they work and their careers. According to a study done by IBM's Institute for Business Value, 1 in 4 workers plan to change jobs in 2021. And while studies indicate that younger workers are more likely to switch jobs, this is a change from the mentality of prior generations. And by the way, 96,000 women have left the workforce since the pandemic because they cannot afford childcare. They can't go to work. And since the pandemic, this has forced companies seeking those workers to highlight benefits beyond health care and pension plans, but to highlight flexible schedules, remote work, tuition reimbursement, and higher wages as out-of-pocket costs for both daily life and the cost burden for safety nets. we all may have taken granted, like healthcare and insurance and retirement savings, have shifted from the corporations and the companies that used to provide it and put the onus on the individual. We're also continuing seeing a dearth of skilled tradespeople and industries like fishing being squeezed out of existence by restrictions and regulations. If you look outside, and I hope you'll get the opportunity to go up to the 4th floor or the Superior Courtroom before you leave here, you will look out over Plymouth Harbor right across to Provincetown on a clear day. 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50, 25 years ago, you would have seen a different vista. The harbor would have been filled with sailing and fishing vessels and working mills. 100 years ago, that began to change as technology, railroads, trucks, and other forms of transportation and manufacturing replaced those industries. 25 years ago, the reduction in our fishing fleets eliminated jobs that had been held for generations. Regulatory changes forced out industries, some for the better, some for not. And while today Plymouth is still second in the state for landings of lobsters, our traditional fishing industry has greatly declined. However, no matter what job or career you have, there is one common denominator for everyone, and that is, how do we make ends meet? And that's where the challenge is. This is more clearly seen as we look at those who are working in our service industry, which is critical to our economy, and our hourly wage workers. And while we all may realize it, I think it's important for all of us to hear the numbers. A minimum wage worker making $13.50, 40 hours a week, makes a gross salary of $28,000 a year. A tip worker's annual gross base salary, $11,040. So let's put that into perspective. First of all, there's no hope of owning a home, with the median price in Massachusetts hovering around $500,000. What about retiring? Without affordable housing programs, the median cost for a 2-bedroom in Boston is $2,080 a month. And in Lowell, it's $1,740. And I just found out yesterday that the 240 apartments that are being built in Kingston next door here, a studio apartment will start at $1,700. A 3 or 4 bedroom apartment will be over $5,000. How do we afford that? Who can afford that? So for full-time minimum wage worker with children living in Boston without assistance, their yearly cost of housing is $24,960. In Lowell, it's $20,880. That's just for rent. Then you never mind child care, which for 2 children can be over $20,000 a year. And transportation costs, and out-of-pocket health care costs, etc. And their job likely has no paid leave, so they can't afford to stay home if their child's sick. And we don't have enough daycare, and we don't have enough affordable daycare. And when we pay our daycare workers $10 an hour, and they can make $15 an hour at Starbucks and get benefits, where are they going to go? Some of the reasons we cannot get daycare workers. They're all issues we've grappled with for decades, but they're answers if we're bold enough to lead. And I know that the Commonwealth has the vision and the talent to do that. We have to lead in housing, employment opportunities, childcare, living wages, and a new way to look at education, which President Clark talked about. We need to end the stigma around affordable housing and rental assistance. We need to invest, and invest heavily, like post-World War II, so that working families can afford to have a roof over their heads. And we look at our infrastructure. Housing, childcare must be part of that equation. We need to support our local small businesses and traditional industries in a real way that will allow them not to only keep their doors open, but to hire people at a wage that workers can not only survive on, but they can take care of their families. We need to hold large corporations accountable and ensure that they're paying a true living wage, and not just the minimum, because minimum wage is not a living wage. 6 years ago, a Seattle-based company's CEO cut his salary by $1 million to pay all of his employees a starting salary of $70,000. Critics said his company would go under, it would go bankrupt. Not the case. In fact, according to the CEO, their business has tripled, their turnover rate was cut in half, and has created a loyalty for employees who voluntarily took a temporary pay cut when the company was affected by the pandemic. In 2020, the top CEOs earned 351 times more than the average worker. This is more than an economic issue. It's a moral issue. And companies have to be held accountable. And more than that, it's good for business and good for the economy, which, if you draw it out, makes those companies more valuable. Simply put, we need to invest in people. Affordable housing and higher wages are just two of the pieces we need to address. One of the biggest issues, of course, the cost of health care. Even with a good job, the cost of health care continues to skyrocket. The pandemic certainly showed the many problems within our health care system, particularly long-term health care and the lack of health care support that allows those who are aging or who have debilitating illnesses or the developmentally disabled or delayed the ability to stay in their homes and work. We can no longer afford to try and patch these services together. We certainly saw that in the pandemic. We saw that in our long-term care facilities. We saw that in our veterans facilities. It was a crime, but it was a crime that was preventable because we don't pay those workers enough to stay in those jobs, to keep good workers in those jobs and train them. We need a comprehensive overhaul of how people access health care. We need a system that cares for both the physical and mental health of everyone, both preventive and long-term care, and that includes the cost of prescription drugs. People should not have to choose their health care over food or paying for their home. According to the Massachusetts Health Policy Commission's 2021 report from 2018 to 2019, the most current available data, that the annual growth in healthcare expenditures per capita rose 4.3%, 1.2% above the set benchmark. And according to HBC, the average commercial healthcare insurance premium, this is the average for Massachusetts families, now exceeds $21,000 annually. Why don't you add that to the $20,000 plus for daycare? And what are you working for? You're not getting people back into the workforce because they can't afford to be there. This doesn't include the thousands of dollars people are paying in out-of-pocket costs for health care. And it's no surprise that those numbers, that for those with a household income under 400% of the federal poverty level, 67.1% went without health care due to costs, and I know many people in this community have done that. Even in those households with an income above 400% of the federal poverty level, 26.3% went without care due to costs. In a state where we have access to the best, most cutting-edge health care in the world, and that made the first step toward health care reform. We can do better, and we need to do better. Hospitals, insurance companies, and drug companies' profits can't come before people's health. We need to invest in our home health care workers and make it easier for consumers to access health care through technology, telehealth visits, and home monitoring systems. The technology is there. As we saw with telehealth visits during the pandemic, we need to make this a rule, not an exception. In Massachusetts, we don't have natural resources like oil and gas or coal, and we're hopefully getting rid of some of those. But we do have our greatest asset, as President Clark mentioned. We have an educated workforce that cannot be compared to other states. We have been and continue to be a global economy in large part because of this resource, our workforce and leadership in our innovation economy. In my work, both while in the Senate and after, we work to enhance and cultivate partnerships and economic ties in both Western and Eastern Europe and Asia, creating an environment that brought together higher educational institutions, clean energy innovators, and connected health. Massachusetts is still a major player in the global economy, but to remain that way, we need to continue to cultivate relationships and innovate when it comes to our workforce. Looking at our education system, we have to do more to prepare our students to be able to take on the advanced manufacturing jobs and the skilled jobs that are out there. And that doesn't mean just pushing people into these college programs, as President Clark mentioned. The national average salary for advanced manufacturing jobs is $76,000. But in order for our students to get into those positions, opportunities to learn a trade, to go to technical schools have to be increased. More access to vocational schools is paramount to filling these new clean manufacturing jobs. We're failing our children when we just teach them to be consumers and not providing them with the fundamental skills to fix, create, build, and critically think. And critically thinking is really important. I've done a lot of work in Asia and China, and I can tell you that they look to our educated workforce versus theirs because they don't teach critical thinking. We do, and we need to expand upon that. And when many of us were in school, well, I should talk about myself, home economics and workshop and automotive were part of the core curriculum. Just like we had these life skills classes, classes like programming and engineering need to become part of our core curriculum. And I added, and I got a lot of flack from it at the beginning, when we started to talk about STEM education and teaching STEM, I added A and put STEAM because that arts part is important for the full development, not just the focus on engineering, adding arts and music and have a well-rounded person who can critically think and correct and advance, look at problems from all different areas. Beyond our students, we need to find ways to incentivize for the current workforce, to get the training for those positions. We need to open our voc schools at night for adult trainees to change their training, to give them more life skills. We have the buildings. We heat and cool them anyway at night. Why not open them up and utilize them? And while we're looking at filling the education gaps for our students, Massachusetts also needs to look at where we can lead in the future. We need to take that leap of faith to invest in future economic drivers, like we did with life sciences. The Commonwealth needs to invest in existing as well as future energies like clean energy, sustainability. We can and should be a leader, not in just the end product of reducing our carbon footprint, but in the design, manufacturing, installing, and reimagining how we get to that end goal. However, as we innovate, there is a cautionary tale. We must remain mindful of and that is promoting the technology economy without sacrificing our workforce. As we see more and more companies looking to utilize robotics and AI, we need safeguards for workers. As we welcome both national and global companies, we must also ensure that we're protecting and supporting our local small businesses. The bookstore around the corner, our neighborhood package store, the local mechanic down the street from becoming obsolete. Just to give you one number, 196,000 people are employed in package stores. Those are small businesses. So if we give corporations or big grocery stores the availability to carry more and more alcohol, you're going to see those jobs disappear. And do you want to see them disappear? I know the complaint is, I want to buy everything in the same place. Those corporations do not need the additional money. We need to keep our small businesses here. As the Commonwealth looks to invest in our economic future, we can't cast aside our foundation industries like tourism, hospitality, and fishing. We have to find a balance. The Massachusetts Senate announced last week their blueprint for post-pandemic recovery with some, I think, very bold initiatives for the federal funding the Commonwealth has received. Ideas like intergenerational care centers. And by the way, this isn't new. This is all over Europe. They already do this in other countries. With digital, everything is digital, and I'm still stuck in analog. And investing in housing are critical to addressing those issues. Improving broadband that will lead to better paying jobs and more educational opportunities for our rural and our underserved areas. And workforce training that will invest in the underemployed. And that opening up those voc schools can help that. There is no way to solve all of those issues at the same time, but a piecemeal approach is a Band-Aid on a wound which will not heal until we invest in all of the issues that have been discussed today. Massachusetts must invest in our people to ensure that they can live, thrive, stay healthy, and retire here. Massachusetts must reimagine education and invest in our core industries and our emerging economy. There's no question it's a tall order, but we have the benefit of strong leadership. We have the fortune to be in a very strong fiscal situation, and we have the vision to take the step forward where other states hesitate. Massachusetts has always been a leader in this country, from the first public schools to marriage equity to health care reform, and it's again time that we can lead. So again, thank you for asking me to present to you today, and I'd be happy to take any questions. And by the way, to add to President Clark, We just brought in a cybersecurity company into Fall River that we stole, I won't tell you, from another state, that is working directly with UMass Dartmouth, Bridgewater, through Vinnie DiMacedo, and the community colleges. So they went to them looking for these employees, and that's the future, another future industry.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam President. We appreciate all that great information. I'm sure some members have some questions. I know Representative Natra wanted to ask a question?
I'm going to try to only ask one.
or two, maybe?
Thank you, Madam President. That was a great presentation. So just with your experience, what legislative priorities could you recommend on some of these issues?
I think the fact that you have the ability with the ARPA money, with all of this federal money coming in here, we didn't have that when we just went through the Great Recession that we just went through. So we had to do some layoffs. We made very hard decisions, dropping $3.5 billion within 3 months. If we had had the federal money, we wouldn't have had to do that. We wouldn't have put people out of work. People would have stayed in their homes. People, two-parent working families would have stayed in their homes. And instead, we lost all of that. Now we're trying to rebuild. So I would say, don't look at regulations that don't harm the existing companies and existing businesses. Look at regulations or opportunities to invest that money like we did with life sciences. Do this phototechnics. We created at Bridgewater, we had employers, in fact, former Senator Dan Wolf, who was an aviation company, came to us before he was a senator and said, I don't have enough pilots and I don't have enough people trained mechanics. Well, we started the mechanic program at Community College on the Cape, partnered with Bridgewater for the additional, so that they get the associates, then they get a certificate of associates, a bachelor's, and they can continue to add on. Make it easier for that to happen in all of our public higher ed institutions. And critical thinking and civic education, civil civic education, is really important now.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Great. Other questions from the commissioners? I'm scanning. Secretary.
Thank you, President Murray. So good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Welcome back here. So I guess a comment. One of the things that you spoke about, you were very comprehensive.
I was trying to get everything
sketch of absolutely everything that needs to be done, and I just want to add that, in addition, all of those things existed pre-pandemic. All of these concerns, this was not created by the pandemic. What's the pandemic has now opened up is the possibility for workers to not stay in Massachusetts, right, to work remotely. And as I look at Generation Z, and as I look at the millennials, I am very concerned that they're going to be looking at remote work possibilities that don't include Massachusetts because they can't afford to live here. And I do think that this commission's got to take the housing piece. Aside from all of those other things that you mentioned, but the housing piece is very important, because if you layer that housing impossibility that we currently have in Massachusetts with the equity lens, then who's going to stay in Massachusetts? Certainly not our people of color, right? So who's going to stay in Massachusetts if we cannot give low-income folks the ability to stay in Massachusetts?
It's not just low-income folks.
It's not just low. No, it's not just. It's everyone. It's middle income too.
It's everyone.
It's
if you saw,
income.
and those articles were in the Globe today about workforce, the ability to people work from other places so they don't stay here in Massachusetts.
Exactly.
The one thing we have going, and I think President Clark will agree with this, is most of our public higher ed students stay here. Now that's going to change probably with remote learning, but if you give them the ability to live, to be able to afford to live here, they're going to stay here because we have a quality of life here in this Commonwealth that really can't be matched. You can say go to Seattle and go to Washington. I would say with their climate changes now, you're going to see more people staying here than there. Same thing with Silicon Valley. We have now usurped Silicon Valley for biotech.
Absolutely.
And life sciences, because we invested in that 12 years ago. 14 years ago. We put so much aside every year that was invested in that. We can give out grants to small universities, small colleges. We can give them out to New Bedford High School to create more labs. When I visited Cape Cod Community College, it was probably 6 years ago, their lab was 40 years old. Their lab wasn't workable. How anyone got an education through there. It was deplorable. Life Sciences gave them the money to rebuild that lab. Those people stayed here. So we have to make sure we keep them here. And there's got to be a realization that, and I know it's NIMBY, it happens here in this town, it happens in every town, we have to have housing. We have to create housing. If they could have done it after World War II by building these massive, and I'm not saying put up public housing projects because that was a disaster after a while. Those projects were built for people to live into 2 to 4 or 5 years, move on until they rent it out and then were able to afford a home. They can't do that today. And the article again in today's Globe about Jamaica Plain, just take a look at Jamaica Plain and the diversity. It's a diverse community, but the gentrification is slowly moving everybody out. So how do we keep the lower paid, how do we keep the lower paid and a diverse community with the increase in costs? I think you can do it. And I think there's a way to do it. Everybody has to sit at a table, though, and talk about where the housing goes. There's plenty of land. This town has tripled in size since I've lived here. And we've built many, many housing units, but they're now becoming unaffordable. A Cape, and I'll give you a little example of Cape, a straight Cape here in Plymouth that should have gone for $250,000, $300,000 are selling for $450,000 and $500,000. A two-bedroom, three-bedroom Cape. So what can you do about it? 40B I know is a bad word, but there's got to be a way to use not the hammer of 40B, but sit at a table and say, we have a community of people that live here and rent here and work here and grow up here. We want to keep them here. So how do we do it? We have to have affordable housing. And the veterans housing that's going on in other parts of the country where they have more space, granted, the small units that they're putting up for them to live in and to stay in as they age, should be something we're looking at for other people. We have so many problems facing us, but I know the leadership in this room, and I know the leadership in the legislature, and I know the leadership in the higher education institutions. If we sit at a table and talk civilly to each other, we can get around this. We can make that happen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have to move on, but thank you, Senator. We appreciate your comments. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my co-chair to introduce our next distinguished speaker.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Cutler. It's now my honor to introduce Elisabeth Babcock. There she is. The President and CEO of EMPath. Elisabeth, or Beth Babcock, is the President and CEO of Economic Mobility Pathways, or EMPath, an international charitable organization dedicated to creating new pathways to economic independence for low-income families. EMPath uses its unique action tank business model to design, build, and test new approaches for creating economic mobility, and then shares these approaches with other organizations and governments. Beth's role as CEO is to lead EMPath in its strategy to be a research and innovations powerhouse, consistently delivering new approaches that expedite pathways out of poverty. EMPath's applied research led to the development of its groundbreaking mobility mentoring platform. Since its release in 2009, mobility mentoring has been internationally recognized for creating significantly improved outcomes in earnings, educational attainment, and family stability in extremely low-income families. Beth received her master's degree from Harvard's Kennedy School of Government and her PhD in nonprofit strategy from Harvard's Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. She has received numerous awards, including the Sesame Street Hero Award, very cool, and the International Alliance for Women's World of Difference Award. Please welcome Elisabeth Babcock.
Thank you very
The
much.
floor is yours.
I appreciate that kind introduction, and Senators Lesser and Hines and Representative Cutler, Lenatra, and Mira, thank you very much for inviting me to present here, and thank you to the rest of the Commission for making time for my testimony. I truly appreciate it. What I want to talk with you about today is less about the work of my organization than about the science that underpins that work, because in speaking with Representative Cutler, I am aware of the fact that this may be new information that the Commission has not yet heard about. So our organization, Economic Mobility Pathways, otherwise known as EMPath, is a Boston-based nonprofit organization that works in 37 states in the United States with 140 partner organizations and in 4 other countries, basically deploying new ways of working to help low-income families move out of poverty, attain degrees, complete their goals, move out of shelter, get additional training and move up the job ladder, and ultimately really significantly increase their earnings. We work as an economic mobility action tank, which if you haven't heard of that before, it's not a surprise. Basically, we do direct services, but those direct services in the greater Boston area to about 1,400 or so families serve as a basis for collaboration on the research and development that we do as an R&D organization on new ways of helping families move out of poverty. And then what we learn, we evaluate with ourselves and our partners and external evaluators. And as we learn new ways of working that are more effective, we then share them broadly with this large network. The network of organizations now using our tools and approaches for moving families out of poverty include as diverse a group as Mass General Hospital, the New York City Department of Children, Youth and Services, the State of Washington's Department of Children, scrappy little housing organizations in downtown Detroit. It's just a wide variety of organizations, but ultimately they serve about 50,000 people a year, and we have been working and sharing these tools now since 2009. So what is it that we do? What we do is we take brand new science that is coming from both the social services, social sciences, behavioral sciences, pure science, medicine. This emerging science is a converging research base that basically is about how poverty, trauma, stress, and oppression impact the way people learn, develop, behave, and solve problems. And this science is incredibly rich. And what it tells us is it tells us that being in poverty affects the way people think and behave. That being in oppression or being an oppressed group can affect the way people think and behave. And essentially what we know from very, very demonstrated, research-based, evidence-based science is that it is in essence like having a set of leg weights at the start of a race, where individuals who come to that race without those leg weights just have a very different experience of the pathway forward than individuals who are under stress. What we as an organization have developed is a mechanism for working with low-income families that is based on this knowledge and science, that is designed around new ways of collaborating, partnering with low-income families to help them attain their own goals. We're known for this practice known as mobility mentoring that now, as I said, is being shared with tens of thousands of families across the United States, over 300,000 families already served with this platform. And it is a practice of partnering with low-income families so that they can achieve the resources, so connecting and doing all the things normal human service organizations do, trying to connect people to the right resources that they need, but also the skills and sustained behavior changes that are necessary to attain and maintain and keep economic independence. Because what we know about this movement in and around poverty is that the tendency is for people to be able to move above the poverty line maybe, and then a vast majority then slip down below the poverty line. And the ability to be able to sustain and keep that movement going forward is a very, very challenging thing to do. We have lots of evidence about interventions that get people into a job. We have lots of evidence about interventions that can even get people through a training program and into an even better job, perhaps. But what we don't have evidence of is the ability to be able to connect with individuals, to give them skills to actually run that race with those leg weights on so that they actually reach the middle class and maintain their place in the middle class and potentially beyond. So creating that even race that we know is just not even from the get-go. So what do we know? What does the science tell us? Well, in the simplest terms, what it tells us is that the stresses of poverty, trauma, oppression compromise core decision-making skills and behavior management skills that are often called soft skills. I believe President Murray referred to critical thinking skills, how important they are. 21st century skills is what they're sometimes called in the workforce arena, also called executive function skills. But these are the skills that are core to being able to set and attain goals and navigate one's pathway forward. And what we know is that the stresses of poverty, trauma, and oppression swamp our analytic capabilities, compromise our abilities to be able to think about the future, and decrease our self-control. So in simplest terms, what we know is that poverty affects the way that we think and behave by making it so that we focus on the most immediate problems that we have at the moment and do not have the capacity to think about the future. Nature has designed it that way. If you have a tiger who's approaching you, you do not look at that tiger and say, is this one who just escaped from the zoo and maybe has a full belly and was just fed? Or is this a tiger who may chase after me? When you are under threat, all of us as human beings react immediately to the threat. The threat is the only thing that we think about, and it's very, very difficult to think about anything else or think about anything beyond that moment. The families that I work with have a tiger with them all the time, all the time. All the time. The families that I and the organizations we partner with, work with, are the families that will be on that bus to go take the last exam of the semester, when they will get a call from the nurse at school who will say, your child is having an asthma attack, and we need you to come to school to take care of your child. And where people who are not under stress would automatically think, well, what's my plan B? Can my sister go get the kid? Could the nurse keep the child at school for the next couple of hours so I could at least take this exam, maybe the last exam to complete the course that I need to complete? The plan B does not surface for people who are under extreme stress. What happens is dealing with that incoming as it comes in, and the problem of the moment. This is normal and natural. Last week, I had a flat tire. That big red light came on my car while I was driving into work, and I realized I had a flat tire. I didn't know where and how I could pull over. I tried calling AAA 3 times before I could finally figure out how to connect. I think of myself as a very competent person, and I can tell you I was rattled by that. Completely rattled by it. And the way that I would normally behave is not how I behaved when that big red light started flashing. So what are these 21st century executive functioning or soft skills? These are the core skills to being able to move ahead. These are the skills that include the ability to think creatively and strategically, to be able to solve problems, to be able to organize things, your surroundings, your life, your order, your priorities, to be a resilient and motivated, self-directed learner, a person who can come back from when something has not gone well or when you couldn't learn something or grasp it as readily as the other people around you. These are the skills to set and attain goals, and they are also the skills that are our ability to sort of interpret the signals from people around us, to be able to understand what is being meant by something that's being said, and thereby to lead teams to work effectively with others, and also to respond with equanimity when we think that we are being criticized. To be able to listen and not become overly hurt or defensive or snap. In other words, these are the critical skills to be able to get ahead in work and in school. and in family management. So what do we know about these challenges? We know that they are big. They are big. Think about this. These are stats I'm sure you've heard about already. Less than 1/3 of students who start a certificate or an AA program in the United States complete within 150% of normal time. We have community and college and other programs in the United States where the completion, 6-year completion rates for people of color are in the single digits. Single digits. Think about the cost of funding those programs for that kind of completion. These are also the skills that are among the top 3 highest desired on ONET, on Glassdoor, the research that's being done now about the jobs that are available in the United States within the top 3 of desired characteristics and skills. These are the skills. The ability to think creatively, strategically, problem solve, lead teams, work with others. These are all in the top 3. And by the way, the other 2 are different kinds of engineering and computer skills. So these are listed now in virtually all job openings in one way or another. And the organizations that are searching for people have now learned ways to test for them online. So Indeed, one of the largest job posting sites, as you know, in the United States, now screens for these executive function skills. They have tests that employers can ask to be done before a resume can even make its way through. Now think about my moms taking that test with that tiger in the room with them. Think about my moms sitting there with their kids trying to figure out where the next meal is going to come from or how to juggle everything. Trying to take those kinds of problem-solving, analytic capabilities, navigational skill tests, while they have all that's going on in their lives right there in the room with them. And think about that in comparison to perhaps a more fortunate person who's sitting in their bedroom, in their more moderate or affluent home, taking those same tests under a completely different set of conditions. And you can imagine what that means for equity in access to new jobs. Right off the bat, leg weights, right there. So it's not surprising that what you see and time again is that we have disproportionate filter or opportunities for people to be able to get into the training programs, to even know about the training programs, to be able to stay through the training programs, to be able to get into the jobs, to get filtered through to get the jobs, and then to be able to stay in the jobs effectively and be able to have that self-directed capacity to then direct oneself into the next job, and the next job, and the next job. But it's very, very different when you know about this. When you design for these kinds of struggles, and these kinds of issues, when you design interventions that are informed by how stress, trauma, and oppression affects the way people think and behave, when you design to those characteristics, understanding, then what happens is the outcome rates are very, very different. Across the United States, for the entire population, goals completion rates on average for just about anything we want to do, save money, lose weight, stop smoking, complete school, complete a semester of school, save money. You can just take about any kind of goal that we all would want or we want our participants to have, our students to have. And you'll see that on average, the successful completion rates for the general population hover around 25%. 25%. And yet with this kind of coaching, look at this. These are families that I've served. These are families who are in shelter. 2/3 of them are in shelter or recently come out of shelter. These are families who are extremely low income, very low income. So we're talking about goals completion rates here for them, for the kinds of things that they achieve: getting jobs, saving money, moving out of shelter, completing semesters of schooling, attaining new careers, moving up in those careers, even buying homes. In this economy, currently, These are successful goals completion rates for this past year during COVID for all of these things. 90 to 95% of our families that we rent to pay their rent on time. Look at the comparison. Average savings for our families at exit was $1,248. You know and have heard about the level of savings that most participants have. And families who are coached for 3 to 5 years increase their incomes, and we do this every year, been doing it every year since 2009, and our partners replicate it, increase their income to $48,576 a year from 1/3 that approximately at entry. So this isn't getting people into jobs, this is moving them beyond that. With degree completion rates that are commensurate, 75%, and increased credit scores and all the other things that we could talk about that are all included in what the work is that we do, which coaches people on family stability, health and well-being, financial management, their education and training, and employment and career, all of those together in a way that it has the participants themselves as the masters of their own ship, setting their own goals, with the mentors who are working with them, working beside them to help make this possible. This is a very, very different way of working. And so what I would ask you is to think not just about education and training opportunities, but to think about the completion in those education and training opportunities, and who is going to complete and who is not. And to think about the resources that are necessary to create the same set of leg weights or no leg weights at all at the beginning. Financial resources make a difference. Anything you can do to decrease the financial stresses on my families, on our families, is going to be helpful because it decreases that stress. It creates bandwidth. It creates greater capacity to be able to help yourself. So anything you can do on basic resources like housing, like childcare, is going to be useful. But in looking at the training opportunities, we have to think about more than just the education and training themselves or the way the jobs start. We have to think about the different types of people who need to have access and how we create fairness in that access. So I'll take any questions that you have.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions from the commission? Lisa Bryant.
I'd like to know a little bit more about the families that you serve. In particular, what type of workplace legal issues, since we're talking about work primarily here, what type of workplace legal issues do your families see? And I'll give you some leading questions, a few examples. For example, I mean, I can guess. I'm thinking, are we talking about families where maybe somebody's having trouble getting,
thank you very much,
exercising their rights under the new Paid Family Medical Leave Act, or pregnancy discrimination, or in particular, I have seen in my practice issues with folks who are under stress, being effective self-advocates at work, especially when they need an accommodation, especially when we're talking about the soft skills and executive function. And this is a much longer conversation, but the disability discrimination laws almost assume that someone can self-advocate. And so we've got a circular problem here because the people who probably most need to have difficulty. So I'm wondering what you're seeing in terms of, maybe there are other legal issues, but in terms of workplace legal issues, what do you see, and what are the folks that are part of the EMPathways network? Or is it EMPathway?
EMPath, yep.
EMPath, I have been, like I know, I think I've crossed circles with some folks from your organization. I know they do good work. So I'd like to hear more about that.
Well, you know, the challenges that the families we work with face are everything from their inability to easily find work because they may not have legal residency in the United States, past CORI issues, individuals who have struggles because of the need to care for family members at the same time that they're trying to get ahead, and that may be parents, it may also be obviously their children and all the struggles associated with that. It is challenges with language, the ability to be able to effectively advocate for oneself because of the kind of identity that being in poverty creates, because poverty itself has a pervasive kind of identity that comes along with it that is also assumptive and pejorative. So we work, the data that you're seeing in the stats that I have there are with families with all of these challenges, all of them: homelessness, coming out of homelessness, healthcare challenges, because people who are in lower income categories are likely, they do have higher rates of disease associated with the stresses of poverty, so higher rates of diabetes and hypertension and all those things that you already know. So we work with all of those challenges. And I think what's really important is to understand that the families we work with are motivated, they're intelligent, and what they face is they face the constant little bumper car that bumps into the wall and then bumps away. And what a partner coach can do is to help them see where the doorway might be. You know, help them to find that doorway and help them be prepared to continue on, you know, wind the car back up when it's running out of steam because it's bumped into one too many places. The coaching helps to give people a different sense of self, and coaches for that. Coaches for the problem-solving skills, the goal-setting and attainment skills, the future orientation, and the sense of self that allow individuals who are motivated, competent, smart, strong, to be able to persist with those leg weights on, because somebody beside them is saying, I've seen other people do it, and I know it's really, really hard, but this is what you might want to try. It is the antithesis of case management. Case management is helping the whack-a-mole of the day. It's helping, you know, that focus on the immediate thing. Case management just creates hyper-focus on the immediate thing. It's just the opposite of that. It's actually building the executive functioning skills that are necessary in order to be able to direct yourself to do that. We have an article coming out in Pediatrics this winter, in the Journal of Pediatrics, that is of 13,000 families in the state of Washington that showed that not only did this coaching improve their own attainment in all 17 areas of adult development measured, school, savings, decreased parental stress, you know, education attainment, but also increased the entry scores for kindergarten of their children.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Any questions? I know there's going to be a lot of engagement. We have another panel coming up, but we want to give everyone a chance to engage with this. Anyone on this side of the room? Al Vega.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that presentation. My question, I guess, kind of feeds into the previous presentation when I was hearing a little bit about obviously the minimum wage, salary, what it actually costs to live in this state. And so, you know, hearing about a program like yours, I assume there are folks probably that even with the right kinds of support might still have barriers and hindrances that are might be impossible to get out of, or will take a really long time for them to see themselves in a different way. And so I'm wondering if there's any recommendation. I think I heard you mention a little bit about things that this commission can really think of in terms of immediate things that we can do to support low income, people of color, undocumented families that I know personally from our work. Those are the ones who are constantly facing a range of those barriers and other ones that a lot of people don't see, recognize, you know, live themselves. And so I think that this commission can play a significant role in trying to figure out if there's something that we can do to help change that conversation. I know people talk about, you know, changing minimum wage and that's going to lead to businesses leaving. And I feel like those kinds of talking points, we need to figure out how to just not believe that those are the way that our state needs to move forward, but actually come up with innovative and creative and bold ideas that will actually impact the people that you're helping on a daily basis.
Well, you know, we could give you tons of footnotes if you want them on neuroscience that shows that the minute you give people more dollars in the household, it affects their ability to use these 21st century skills. And also, by the way, how well their kids do in school and their children's development. So anything that increases the resources is going to increase people's capacity to be able to help themselves, without a doubt. Anything that increases housing or childcare, the two biggest ticket items for our families, is going to be helping with that resource infusion. But the other thing to think about is at Bristol Community College about 5 years ago, they started with funding from the Women's Fund of Southeastern Massachusetts. They started having coaches in the community college for non-traditional TANF recipients who are trying to complete community college. There's a lot of stuff going on there. You know, a lot of hurdles there. Moms trying to complete college who are on TANF. And what they found was that they could triple and quadruple the completion rates of those students just by having that coach at the college. So it's not, you want to think about, we have a tendency to think about how many people we can graduate the quickest. Who are the first people most likely to complete? But what we don't think about that is when we think about that kind of retraining or job retraining or upskilling. What we don't think about is that mom at Bristol Community College is having to use, and doesn't want to be using, she's there at school, a lot of resources. And when she completes, we not only have that higher completion rate and the cost savings associated with that, but we also have the decreased costs of supporting her family. So what we have, so we have studies from Brandeis and other universities that show that this kind of coaching is cost effective and actually completely pays for itself with the return on investment in 3 to 5 years. And going forward, all those savings from tax increases, subsidy reductions, health and well-being, they actually save the money going forward. So these are being used by many institutions across the United States now because of their cost effectiveness.
Any follow-up to that? President Dumais.
I think this is great work. Thank you for the presentation. I absolutely love the design thinking aspect of, designing an intervention for a problem. The problem is people have weights around their ankles, and you're designing a set of interventions for that. And you spoke about the science that says that poverty and oppression can create, a set of behaviors, basically, that compromise people, core decision-making and thinking. And clearly, that's the problem. And all of those strategies are helping people, and the results show for it. So there could be a risk that folks think that it's a pathology with the people who are poor.
Yes.
Because that mindset of that creation. And so for the, get yourself up by your bootstrap people, that might say, see, when you put those strategies in place. Whereas there are actually systemic issues that create some of those
without a doubt
situations. And I think there is a policy implication. It's not just philosophical. There's a policy implication.
Yes.
In addition to the strategies that you're designing, but systemic problems also should be looked at. And so maybe can you speak to that?
Yes. We're a national organization. I've worked directly with the Domestic Policy Council and the Obama White House, and we were declared innovation by that administration, a social innovation. And we work directly with the Department of Labor, the Department of HHS. I could talk about the policy work, but the desire is to make it understood that this is a human situation. It has nothing to do with anything other than the circumstances in which an individual finds themselves. Temporary, as in the case of my flat tire, thank God, but also in a more consistent way, which is what the families I work with experience, is that daily kind of consistent stress. And what is important to understand is that this common human condition is one that science shows us that we can assist, and individuals are looking to have it assisted. The families that I work with, that our partner organizations work with across the United States, talk about when faced with how do I get ahead, that question, feeling quote unquote paralyzed, frozen, not knowing what steps to take, not knowing how to help themselves. This feeling of being frozen is an absolute expected scientific byproduct of being overwhelmed. And to get past that or through that, for an individual to start being able to find the next steps and then build on those next steps requires an understanding of that physiological thing that happens and the ability to partner with someone so they can begin to see themselves and their way forward in a different way. There is a danger. We always blame the poor. This is no different. People will turn and will blame the poor for these circumstances and categorize people who are poor as damaged. But we always do that. The fact is, it hasn't anything to do with a person's biology in the way that they're born. It has to do with what our world does to people in overwhelming the wonderful skills that they have. And we have to make that more clear. And the science says that it is, because we have studies that have been done that show that when you coach for these skills, studies at Berkeley, Department of Neuroscience, that show that when you coach for these skills, that there are changes in the brain on MRIs, brain scans. We know that the opportunity is there for all.
We want to try to get a couple more in. Any response to that, or? No. Great. All right, looking down, Miriam Ortiz. And we'll work our way down if there's further questions from the commission.
Thank you, Dr. Babcock, for your presentation. I am in an organization that's fortunate enough to be part of the EMPath network, and we use the Bridge as a model for our training program. So just speaking from experience, it has really been useful to be part of a network and the learnings that you're bringing back constantly. Something that is a critical part that I think has been successful is, and maybe you didn't talk about it too much in the presentation, but is the fact that there is a matching savings account element to it, and that there are incentives to continuing to have people engage. And I think in regards to this piece, to me, that's really, really important, right? Because it's not just about the behavior changes, and yes, it could be about the way that we're providing services, but that realization that families know what's best, and you actually need to invest. And so just a question in terms of how are you finding that partners fund this piece? Because I find, personally, that it's usually we have to look for, philanthropy support, and that's difficult to sustain year after year, right? Like this investment is about, yes, tweaking the model, but actually funding it, right? So just curious what you found nationally or on the policy level that advances that piece of the work that's so critical.
Yep. So thank you very much for bringing that up. A piece of the work that we recommend is recognizing people's achievement of goals in a variety of different ways, because it's important for there to be jazz hands and stars and explosions, because something that's emotionally charged with a positive emotional sort of concomitant experience is something that is more remembered. We know that what we remember is what emotionally touches us, what we remember best. And so for our families, it's really important to heighten the memory and the recollection of positive achievements. And so we recommend with ourselves and with the organizations that we partner with that there be systems of recognition for goals that are attained. Now, this match savings is only done with about 50 families of the 1,400 that we serve. The outcomes, because we only have it philanthropically funded for that number. The balance of the families that we serve have very small recognition budgets that may vary from almost nothing to $400 or $500 per person per year that are used to recognize goals that are attained by families that they set for themselves. And with our partners, it's a similar range, all the way from no financial rewards given at all for goals that are attained, all the way up to the kind of match savings or large programs. What we find is that definitely it's good to have those resources. It's helpful and it changes the rate at which outcomes can be achieved. It does help memorialize the achievements and makes them more powerful. but it doesn't have to be there in order for people to achieve. The other forms of recognition that are used are events, public events, notes that are written, opportunities for people to give testimony in front of each other in groups, and all kinds of things like diapers and gift cards and other things like that. So we recommend it as part of the overall coaching process. And the more powerful the recognition can be, we've seen the more it accelerates the ability of families because of the additional resources into the home, as well as because of its ability to motivate.
Thank you. Any follow-up or?
Thank you so much.
Any final questions from our commission or comments? Mr. Bevilacqua.
Thank you. Fascinating presentation, and I was not familiar with it, so I really appreciate it. But it struck an idea in my mind, and I've been reading about over and over and over again, is you move this generation and everyone forward, both in terms of education and the workforce. Family structure. How do you help individuals and those that are not a complete family? How do we move them forward to address those issues and those concerns? Is that something your organization does? And it seems to me that that's a continuing problem that exacerbates everything. Education, inability to stay in school, inability to find that job and move on in a career. So I'm just curious as to how or what you see with that as well. And thank you for that. Again, thank you for the presentation.
Well, as you can imagine, single-parent heads of households have another set of leg weights that individuals do not have, but they also have another set of motivations. What we hear time and time again is, I'm doing this because of my child. I'm going to complete this degree because I want my children to see me do it. So it does create a whole set of challenges, huge challenges, but also a set of motivations. And what this kind of work is designed to do is to tap into those motivations and try to decrease those challenges. So we don't set goals for our participants. They set the goals themselves. We help them think about what goals they would set, what priorities they might set them in, but they set the goals for themselves. And what often happens is they will have goals around how to manage their family planning, their family growth, their education for their children, their support for their children's development. In fact, we do this work in a two-generational way with tools we give parents to coach their kids. I think you're absolutely right that the family structure is crucial. A person does not get out of poverty, their family does.
It's a difficult comment to make. Obviously, people may criticize, some people raise the question, but it seems to me to be an integral part, so thank you again.
We're going to have to end it there because unfortunately we have a time constraint on our next panelist, but please join us in thanking Elisabeth Babcock.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Next, I'll turn it over to my chair, or my co-chair,
want to jump
for
on
the introduction of the next panel.
I'm just excited, Eric. All right, so we have a little bit of a change up here, and just as a quick programming note, we have one more, we have a discussion panel, so a little bit of a change up here. After that, we will have lunch. I know the folks probably thinking about that. If you get hungry, we do wanted to give a shout out. Pembroke Cookies, a local business in my district, made these cookies for folks who didn't get the chance to see them. It says Future of Work. Welcome, Future of Work Commission, with a little cranberry there, a nod to our local cranberry heritage. So feel free to snack on your cookie while we are doing the next panel, and we'll have lunch after that. So just want to mention that. And the lunch will be coming from Christina's restaurant in my district as well. So that'll be great. So really excited about our next panel. Ladies, if you want to grab a seat. Karine as well, yeah. We'll do some introductions and get going. So this is intended to be more of a discussion, so hopefully a conversation. I'm going to introduce our special guests, and then each of them is going to say a few words, and then hopefully we'll have more of a conversation. So again, we'll start, Hennessy, we'll start with you. Hennessy Otero and Mona Darwich, welcome. Hennessy and Mona are current students in the Skills Build pre-apprenticeship program. And I want to thank at this time Bob Bauer and the folks at the AFL-CIO and their coalition that kind of runs this program, for all the good work that you do, and also for connecting us with Hennessy and Mona. Skills Build is a 6-week program that's running this fall at the New England Laborers Training Center in Hopkinton. The program serves as a career exploration for those looking to enter the construction trades. Students receive several industry certifications upon completion of the program to help prepare for applying to one of the building trades apprenticeship programs. The program features a mixture of hands-on training, classroom learning, field trips, and a final community service project. I want to also introduce, and then we'll go back, Corinne Sauvignon, who is also a special guest. Ms. Sauvignon is the Executive Dean at the Canton campus of, the Executive Dean of the Canton campus and Dean of Emergent Technologies at Massasoit Community College. She designs short-term certification programs to train returning citizens for careers in high-demand industries and provides workforce training in diesel and HVAC technology. Her most recent awards include providing prison education for returning citizens in partnership with correctional facilities throughout the state, including our own Plymouth County House of Correction. Ms. Sauvignon serves as an advisory member on the MassHire, Greater Brockton, and South Shore Workforce Boards. In addition, she led the creation of the Black Studies curriculum at Massasoit Community College and is the Vice President of the Bay State Chapter for the National Council of Black American Affairs. So welcome, Ms. Sauvignon, and welcome to Hennessy and Mona. As we talked about, I had a chance to Zoom with each of you before, and we're gonna ask each of you to kind of give us a 2 to 3 minute just introduction about yourself, and then we'll go through the panel, and then we'll hopefully have some good discussion and questions from the commission. So, and you're in a friendly audience, no scariness here, so please don't, I know you won't be shy because we had a good chat before, but Hennessy, I'm going to turn it over to you if you just want to give us a quick little introduction and let us go. Let us start. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. My name
And before I interrupt, just the microphone, there's only one microphone and you all are sharing it. So should they move it? Or, okay, so just quietly try to move the microphone to in front of you while you do that. Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead, Hennessy.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. As you know, my name's Hennessy. I am currently 20 years old. I am super thankful for this opportunity. I'm speaking for me, for Mona, and everyone else to be thankful. I started off, I came from PR, and I was, when you enter your teenage years, you get rebellious, you feel like no one understands you. I was in Nether Homes. I graduated from Youth Build currently, and I was super grateful. That's how I met Bob Bowers. And I entered the Skills Build, and I cannot express how grateful I am. You have certifications. You go to the trades. You don't only get the certifications for it, you also go there. You experience a little bit of what it's like to be part of their trades, and they give you a chance to actually apply for them. And it's amazing. It's really, really amazing. You go for 1 to 4 years of apprenticeship. As you guys already know, we're pre-apprentices. The course it is 6 weeks. Fortunately, when you get to the last week, you do not want to leave. You don't want to leave. You create bonds that you did not think you would create. I'm saying it in a good way. And it's just a big family. The instructors are amazing. They guide you. They're great leaders. They motivate you. There's not anything else that's missing from this program. I would not change a thing from it. There's currently 11 students in our pre-apprentice classroom right now. They are no discrimination. Everybody's really comfortable in their own skin. Like I said, you get to explore whatever you want. This is a place where you don't have to worry about what your kids are gonna struggle with, because they will not. You just have to take it. You have to want it. Clearly, after you retire, it is not something that you're going to be looking at your grandkids and you're going to be like, wow, like he wants something, I can't get it for you. I'm too much of an adult right now to work. My bones hurt. I can't lift a finger. And this is something you don't have to worry about that. You come in here not worried about a job. It's about a career. It's about your future, your kids, your grandkids, and yourself to start with, because how can they get there if you don't work on yourself? And I love just the whole concept of it, and it's poverty is actually a big thing nowadays, especially because of COVID. Everything just went down, and now that everything's lifting up, 11 students is a really good amount of kids in our classroom. So I just want to be really, really thankful for everybody giving this great opportunity to us and future to come, because the new generation is the future when we're down. We have to make sure we create warriors, because it's not getting any easier. It's only going to get harder. We have to get everybody prepared, and I feel like this is a great place for that.
Great. Well, I'm sure we're going to have some good questions for you, Hennessy. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mona, do you want to just introduce yourself?
All right. My name is Mona Darwich. I'm 19, and I'm from Norwood. Little backstory about myself. I've been low income since I was born here. Parents immigrants, so it hasn't always been a nice start off in life, but, you know, made things work, and, you know, as long as we had each other, you kind of push on by. And going out through middle school and high school, I didn't think I was going to get anywhere in life. I assumed by high school I'd drop out, and I just kind of shut all the opportunities that came in my way. And going into high school, I was going to drop out initially, and it took a lot to kind of just wait on that and trying to see my options. And thankfully I met Pam, who isn't here today, but I'm sure she's watching. I met Pam, who introduced me about the skills build and introduced me to Bob and kind of got me on a track to see if I wanted to go into the union, if I wanted to be in HVAC, laborers. And when I first heard about the opportunity, I thought it was fake. But, you know, actually signing up, waiting those 3-4 months just to get in. And there's so many kids who would love this opportunity, not just me. And I'm sure there's people going through worse than I am or was or all of that. But just getting into the program was amazing. Finding out about all the certifications you get with such little time span, not paying a penny out of my pocket for it has helped me so much. I would probably be in debt halfway through the program if I had to pay for a penny. First weekend, got set up with boots, tools, a place to stay, meals, and even for transportation, they help us out with gift cards and all this kind of stuff. You wouldn't get this opportunity anywhere. So all in all, this is just, it's like a dream to me. Just
Great.
Being able to say Friday I get to graduate from it and kind of say that's my next step in life, it's awesome. It really is.
Great. Well, welcome, Mona. I look forward to, I got a few questions for you too, but I want to introduce Dean Sauvignon, give her a chance to kind of say hello. Move that microphone if you would. Good afternoon, Dean. Welcome. Thank you for joining
everyone.
us.
Thanks for having me here today. As Rep. Cutler expressed, I am from Massasoit Community College. I am responsible for overseeing many of the trade programs. I run the Associate of Applied Science programs, which include our diesel technology and HVAC programs. So I'm here today because I am one who want to be able to promote opportunities for continued education and on-the-job training in the trade fields. I deal with a lot of students from the VOTEC high schools, as questioned before, and we also work with adult populations who are looking to return to work. But most recently and most importantly, I've taken the initiative with the college to promote prison education opportunities through funding from the Commonwealth Corporation grant, which has allowed me to provide prison education training programs in diesel technology with a lot of the partner programs that I have within the area at the Plymouth House, with Norfolk House of Corrections, and most recently building on a pipeline with the Department of Corrections to provide diesel technician training program. The program has started. We've been running since last fall. We've graduated students in a variety of cohorts that take place at the campus and will be taking place behind the wall as well. The plan is, and the hope is, to continue this enrollment in the program for returning citizens to provide them job opportunities in the field of technician work. That includes partners we have collaborated with, Waste Management, with Milton Caterpillar. And the idea is that we involve students who are looking for careers, who want to build a pipeline of employability within the state. And fortunately enough, we have been able to secure positions for participants in the program who want to, again, engage in stepping up to advanced positions in supervisory roles by completing the college credit program that we provide, so that students who complete our certificate program are then eligible to continue on their education and attain associate's degrees, transfer on to Bridgewater with partnerships that we have through them, with articulation alignments, So just to continue providing this opportunity for individuals returning back into society, because as we all know, the cost to house an inmate exceeds the cost that it would be to provide opportunities of employment. So it's definitely an appreciation to the companies that we work with, that they are a Corey-friendly industry and have been able to secure employability for these individuals who are being released.
Thank you all. So as I said, we're looking at the future of work, and we want to hear from sort of folks who have boots on the ground. We thought this would be a good way to hear your perspectives, the different perspectives that all of you bring. So thank you for that. At this point, I'm going to sort of open it up to the floor. If anyone has any questions they would like to ask, I'm happy to entertain them. I see Rakeem over there, and then Secretary Acosta, and then we'll come over here. Rakeem?
Thank you, Mona Hennessy, for a very eloquent introduction to who you are and what made you interested in the fields that you're currently pursuing. I personally come from a 3-child family. My mom made $18,000 a year, single parent, and it's just really inspiring to see both of you be able to sit here and be able to walk through your experience in the programs that you're going through. As young women in fields that are non-traditional for you, I'm curious to know what initially made you interested in these fields, and how can we get more young women in these fields?
Great question. Whoever wants to jump in, yeah.
Let me take a little turn. Just leave it there. Is that good? There we go.
Yes.
Okay. Initially, besides that moment, like I said, I was in and out of homes at a young age. Not because, parents, but because, when we got to the teenage years, you feel like you just get rebellious. You feel like nobody understands you. But as I got older, I wasn't through a lot of bumps. I was in and out of the streets, as in heavy doses, if you guys know what I'm talking about. I've been doing great. I've been clean. I attended Youth Build, which is what really did help me a lot. Youth Build in Lowell. They were a really big family over there. They really did get me up. Sometimes I wouldn't get up. They would call me. They would call me, and they're like, I know, get up. And they would just motivate me. And it was amazing, having people, you look to your shoulder. Sometimes you feel like you're stuck in a loop, You look around. I live in housing right now, with my mother. And right now, it really is a loop, because they expect you to give the only thing you have. How are you supposed to grow from where they're having you right now if they're not giving you choices? You can only give what you have. So what else do you have for yourself in storage for later or for your future? So I graduated from Youth Build. Thank God to all the staff and everybody there, including the students. They pushed me to graduate, and then in a skills build, I had my boss talk to Bowers, and I did an interview, and they explained it to him. She's really great, she's a leader, and they really did help me. Youth Build really, really did help me. Besides the concept of being general that we all have in common here is families. You ever look at someone that looks up to you, whether it's a nephew, a niece, anybody, you look at them, and one day I spaced out and I looked at the little ones, and I realized they were looking up to me, and I didn't have a lot to offer, not only materialistic, but to survive as a person in this society nowadays, because things are not getting any cheaper, and incomes and rent is really, really high, and I really want to provide not only for people who look up to me, to look up, be like, hey, I want to be like you one day. That's my goal. Not only for people in my family, but people in my community, people around me, and people that hopefully one day I'll have grandkids. I want them to look at me and be like, I want to be just like you. So that's what personally motivated me to be better.
To kind of tag along to what she had to say, in high school I wanted to join Blue Hills. Unfortunately, I was going through a lot of mental and physical problems then, so the opportunity wasn't easy, and they weren't too flexible with my situation, so I missed out on that opportunity and kind of forgot about everything. And I wanted to go there to do HVAC because I said, this is the quickest way I can get my hands on with some dirty work and do something in the trades. I had no clue what I wanted to do, but just something in the trades. And when I went to Norwood High, I kind of gave up on that until my senior year. I was from freshman year to senior year going to landscaping companies, going to contractors, just asking if I can watch them. And because of my size and gender, you know, I get the same answer every time. But fortunately, I was able to find someone who let me basically mentor me with everything. And as I was doing that, I got accepted into the program. And so you learn a lot, you see a lot.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Secretary Acosta?
Well, good afternoon, I think it is now.
Yes.
It's so wonderful to see both of you. I'm a huge supporter of Youth Build and Skills Build, and thank you, Bob, for bringing these beautiful young ladies to us today. I think I had a little bit of a caterpillar experience myself. I learned in Hopkinton, the training session. So, but I guess building on what Raheem asked, you know, right now in Massachusetts is among the leaders in terms of having women in the trades. We have almost 10% women, which is kind of still small, but we're a leader in that. And I would love to hear from you how you think we can increase those numbers. And so for women, it's 10%, but for Latinas, it's certainly lower than that. Yeah. And so if you can just help maybe us understand, maybe from our standpoint, what we can do to help promote more, more women and more diversity in the trades. Bob and I speak about this all the time. What are some of those the obstacles that you have faced that maybe the commission can help address? And thank you. You were both very, very eloquent and also just very brave to be here today. So thank you for sharing your stories with us.
Thank you so much. So you take that question first. Yeah, sure. So right now, for me personally, I know people come from, like, say for example, someone comes from Skills Build to, let's say, Youth Build, to speak and say that they need women. I feel like would be nice to bring a woman along that was experienced and was in their shoes at least once and can relate to them, so that they can actually see. Not because we're gonna be like, oh, it's not true, but when you're in circumstances, you kind of, like I said, you play a cycle in your head, and it's kind of hard to look higher in your future when you only have certain options. So when you have someone come in front of you and they have a woman next to them who can actually relate to you and look at you in the eye and be like, yes, it's possible, I was in your shoes, and now look at where I am. I feel like that would be a really good start to have more women in the trade, especially Latinas. And every other, at the end of the day, that's what makes America great. Everybody comes from all the countries, and we're here, you know what I mean? That's really what makes it great, that we can all come together without discriminating anybody. Not your color, not where you're from, not where you've been, is where you can go and how you can get us there. So I feel like that'd be a good way to get more women in the trades, is bringing a woman along.
I agree with Henny. All good points. One thing I would recommend is, especially in schools, kind of getting people to talk about it, guidance counselors, because for me, I had to push my guidance counselor to just tell me about any kind of union opportunities and stuff like that. You don't see those posters. You see college posters everywhere, or things you could do, but you don't see nothing about the union. Nothing about the trades at all, even if you weren't interested in the union, just nothing in general. You don't really have a lot of those classes. School doesn't really like to focus on it, more of just trying to push out college instead of any other thing, even other than the union. Just if you wanted to start your own business, they wouldn't even try to support that. So I definitely think just it being a topic in the schools and kind of pushing it on students, letting them know that they have this option, it would be awesome.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know Tanya Metlick had a question. I wanted to just acknowledge and thank Tanya for her assistance with our panel today. Tanya.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Bob, for not only getting these two great young women, but for driving them all the way down here from Hopkinton and then back. Definitely appreciate that. It's actually a follow-up, Mona. I was on the prep call you had with Rep. Cutler and his staff, and you said something that really struck me, that you've learned more in this training program than you have in 4 years of high school, which really tells you something. So I'm curious, and it kind of touches on the comments you just made. part of the future of work, thinking about youth and sort of their future and what more we could be doing for them. I'm curious if you could talk to sort of your high school principal or, you know, other leaders in K through 12 education, you know, what would be, you know, some advice or things you think we should think about? Because it's really amazing that you could learn more in 6 weeks than you can in 4 years, and I think it should give us all something to think about. So curious, you know, any additional thoughts you might have on that.
Of course. Well, back in Norwood, my high school, for me, when I was there and I was enrolled, it just seemed like they were just trying to push kids out and, you know, just as many as people as they could to graduate. That's what they were trying to do. And, you know, I knew students, and I was one of those students, that even if I was struggling, it would be like, I'll get you the help and kind of push you away. And then when it came to next year, I would be still struggling. And they just don't, I mean, schools in general, they just don't really focus on the important things anymore, I mean, in my perspective. We had a discussion when I was in school about how there could be classes to, you know, teach how to do your taxes, mortgage, rent, things that when you get out of high school, you're going to be jumped right into. The schools in general, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I know that each school has their different way of teaching and their own lessons. Like if I go to one school and learn history and I go to another school, I'll learn 2 different lessons, but they're both on the same topic. From what I saw with the youth skills build program is that we did hands-on, we went places, we were always in discussions with each other. It wasn't just paperwork after paperwork after paperwork. We actually got to go hands-on with everything and, you know, ask questions, you know, nothing you had to be shy about. And so that was a really amazing opportunity. And what I saw is that I learned better that way, just being hands-on or just having someone show me, not just kind of watch someone on the board all day, right, with the marker. And so a lot of teaching lessons from Skills Build. And they have amazing instructors as well.
Hennessy, do you want to add anything? Are you
Oh,
good?
yeah, can I?
You don't have to. I just want to give you the opportunity.
I personally believe mentoring would be nice. Like, sort of a mentor per each classroom in high schools would be nice. Someone experienced within the trades or within the trades of the union. It would really help, you know. One mentor per classroom, I'd say it's good. I mean, you have 365 days a year to get everybody in that class for that mentor to be able to go around and help them out. You know, a lot of students don't. High schools are not really going to tell you, hey, don't go to college. You know, because let's be honest, it's money. You know what I mean? Money. So I feel like mentoring would be a good economical thing. You know, because it's affordable and it's possible. You know, let's say how many classrooms are per grade? Let's say about 4 or 5. We can 4 or 5 mentors per each year, per each grade. I think it would be possible to bring someone experienced, just do a mentoring, financing, have trouble getting a job. Nowadays, there's a lot of teenagers that come out of the streets or are heavy on drugs or DCF, you know what I mean? And they really need that little pathway and jobs that don't judge you because you just got out of jail or out of juvie, you know? Mentor would really, really help. Someone who understands and doesn't judge where you come from and can guide you to the right path. Because a teacher is going to do a teacher's job.
I wanted to follow up. I have a question for Dean. So when you're talking about the inmate reentry program, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your process for student recruitment, and then secondarily, how could you see this scaling up to, you know, to more broader impact?
So when we initially started the program, we worked with some nonprofits and again with some of the correctional facilities to identify individuals, but most importantly we worked with the employer partners for them to tell us what criteria they would be looking for in regards to background checks to make sure that the students we recruited into the program would be employable at the end of the training. So students come to us each academic year. We start in the fall We enrolled in the fall and the spring semesters of cohorts of 10. Students initially, when we started, would come to us, and as I mentioned before, the plan now is to go behind the wall. So we operate our facilities out of the Canton campus. We have our diesel lab there, and just to mention, we are the only training facility now within the state that trains diesel technicians. So we've been approached by a lot of employers to seek out students to work in the industry, because now the pipeline for new technicians, there's going to be an 8% increase between now and another 8 years of high demand vacancies for these positions. So we took on the charge of trying to be able to promote this educational pathway for students. This program is aligned to our 2-year degree program, so students who come to us through the reentry will take 6 college courses that can then stack into our associate's degree program. So the plan is that as we work with these students, they enter through referral process from the courts, from veteran court, from probation departments, from probation parole, federal and state level, and again, from referrals from within the correctional facilities to participate in this program. And we work with them to complete the program, to definitely want to continue on to complete the 2-year program, but most importantly, to get them job ready. We have employer partners come in and speak to students during the classes that we offer. Our schedule is shifted towards the weekend so that we allow students the opportunity to build in internship opportunities with these employer partners so that they work with them during the week and then they attend the classes with us on the weekends. Students right now, we've started a cohort actually last week where we've now engaged pre-release centers with the population that's enrolled. So these students will complete in August. And in between now and August, they'll have these internship opportunities. And then again, the ultimate goal is that they get work, but then they are able to attain these college credits that would stack into additional certificates or associate degree programs within the Massasoit system.
Great, thank you. I know it was Hennessy and we're going to have to actually get back to their program soon, so we're going to have one final question from our co-host, Representative Lenatra.
Hi, thank you all for being here today. I just a quick question and then just a comment, but you mentioned Pam. So Mona, you mentioned Pam. What was it about Pam that made you listen for this opportunity?
Well, she, when I first met her, I kind of just thought that she was just going to basically give me like a flyer and say, all right, this is a program, go sign up. But when I found out about the program, that was back in June, still 3 months prior to the program even starting. And she knew that I was still kind of in between what I wanted to do with my life, because I was at the point of giving up, then still doing something, and then just in the middle. She texted me every day. She'd show up to the school to check up on me, constantly meeting with me. Anything I needed in general, she was there, attentive, and just helped me so much. Work with Bob just to get in for the meetings, preparing me with gift cards I needed. And like before this, she gave me a text and said, you're going to do great and all this stuff. And I won't even get that from my parents, so it's awesome. I feel so much support, and it just gives me motivation that I know someone's rooting and cheering me on. It's awesome.
That's wonderful. But I want to say to both of you, you're going to be the next Pams.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you guys.
This is fantastic. I wish we had more time. So I know you guys, we do have lunch coming up afterwards. If you're able to stay, if not, great. If not, we know you have a tight schedule, so thank you very much. If you need to get out of here, feel free. We're going to wrap up our meeting in a moment. We just have a few housekeeping items, but again, if you need to go, thank you. And Dean Somonia, thank you as well. Oh, did you want to say something?
Our graduation is this Friday at 9:30. If any of you are interested.
Congratulations. Excellent. Congrats.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so folks, I think this has been an action-packed meeting. We had a lot of great information and a great panel to end it off. Just a few housekeeping items, and then I don't want to stand between you and lunch, so we'll move forward. I know Senator Lesher is going to give us a quick update on the next meeting, which will be in his neck of the woods. So we're looking forward to that. So Senator Lesher, you want to share?
Yeah, just very quickly, everybody's going to be getting the packets with the relevant information, but just so that you've heard it from us directly as well, again, our next meeting is Tuesday, October 26th. Like today, we'll start at 11, but we'll have a kind of, some refreshments and kind of warm-up session before that, but we'll gavel in at 11 o'clock. Our host is going to be Harry Dumais and Elms College, and you've raised the ante now that you're giving out cookies. I don't know, we're going to have to brainstorm.
I expect a cookie.
What we do. Elms College campus is in Chicopee. Please, for our friends from the East, plan your travel to get to Western Mass. Not that I have an axe to grind on this, but my experience has been that my friends in the East tend to underestimate how long the drive is to get to Chicopee. And the last thing I'll just say is we're going to be doing wraparound services at this hearing, which means IT and broadband, transportation, and childcare. So those will be the topics. As always, feel free to reach out to myself or Chair Cutler with any questions or comments or feedback. It's going to be great. We're going to put on quite a show for everyone. So
we look forward to that. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator Lesser. Just before we adjourn, we encourage any further questions, research, or testimony from commission members. Please send any contributions to our staff, who will keep them on file and circulate to the membership. As I mentioned, lunch will be served in the glass lobby, which is down the hallway. All members, speakers, and their guests are welcome. Outdoor and indoor seating have been provided, and vegetarian options are available. There will also be dessert treats if you prefer to grab and go. And again, this will conclude the 4th meeting of the Future of Work Commission, focused on Massachusetts employment and labor law and the new economy and its impact on economic security. I want to thank everyone who helped put our meeting together today. We had a great session, and look forward to continuing that tradition with Senator Lesser. So without further ado, we're going to adjourn. Thank you.